I've been working now in this arena on Capitol Hill for Energy and Commerce Committee and off the Hill for a variety of healthcare interests for about 30 years. And in that period of time, my partners and I, we've learned a number of things. We've touched on them throughout the day today, frankly, since the very beginning with the keynote address from Congresswoman Shalala. How do you actually achieve the outcome that you're seeking? Now, for our purposes, we've developed a formula. We apply it to all the different healthcare campaigns in which we are engaged and the like. And at its core, we found that successful advocacy really depends on just one thing, and that is to make our priority their priority. That's really all that it's about. There are a lot of different elements that go into that, but it's as fundamentally simple as that. How do we make what's important to us important to them? Now, we have to recognize as we think about that, because I want to unpack that a little bit in my comments today. As we think about that, the basis upon which they achieve, and they, of course, are the decision makers that we're seeking to influence, whether federal, state, local, we've heard from about all levels. They may approach the issue that we're advancing through their own particular prism. It could be their mind that causes them to recognize this as a priority. They look at the data and they're so overwhelmed by it, they realize, yes, we've got to do this. Or it could be their heart. They hear the stories. They know people. They themselves have experienced the issue. And that's what causes them to go there. Or frankly, it could just be that they're running for office and they've got an election coming up. Really doesn't matter. For our purposes, we need to work on all fronts to ensure that what's important to us doesn't only remain something that's important to us. It becomes important to them. Now that's the challenge. But the good news is, as it relates to Medicare coverage of medically necessary oral and dental treatment, we have more going for us than most other issues I've ever worked on. And I've had the privilege of working with the cancer community, the kidney care community, the home health care community, surgery, pediatric, all kinds of different things. I'm really struck by the fact that medically necessary oral health care is better positioned today than most of the other issues that are competing for decision makers' attention. And I want to address what I think are the key drivers as to why that wonderful fact is true. The first is that there is an imperative for action. I just picked up one of what could be hundreds of data points that underscore that fact. What's helpful to this cause is that data like this are well known to the folks just a few miles away. They know that they're facing not only a large and growing senior population with significant cost experience, but also that unless they address it, there could be cataclysmic outcomes. The trustees report came out just a week ago, and it underscored yet again that Medicare Trust Fund goes negative in just 6 years, 2026. This is just one of the data points that demonstrates it. Here's another. So this is from the Congressional Budget Office, about which we've heard during this conference. So think about this for just a moment. Total spending will comprise 50% of all non-interest spending in just 10 years. That's the very definition of an unsustainable cost trend. Now, our government, for all of its wonderful virtues, is internationally known for doing the right thing only at the very last moment. So we shouldn't expect to see them take that action tomorrow, though they know this, but they will be taking action soon. And in the meantime, they're actively looking for ways where they can bend the cost curve, whether by a little or by a lot. And we're going to come back to that because that's exactly where we are. Another key driver that positions medically necessary favorably is the fact that there is just an enormous volume of research that many of the folks in this room and your colleagues throughout the country and world have been working on. It is not an exaggeration for me to say that I have never encountered another issue that other groups have brought to us that have the kind of data basis that this issue does. It's extraordinary. It's personally satisfying for me because I was a really obnoxious committee staffer. What I mean by that is when people came in, I used what I thought was a really funny joke, and as my kids have told me, it was probably a dad joke, which is not a compliment. But what I would say is the dollar bill might say, "In God we trust," but everybody else better have data. And I would say that because I basically say, listen, don't come with the talking points. Please come with the data, because at the end of the day, as Dr. Elstein was talking about just a moment ago, you have to substantiate your claims. This issue has it in spades. And I just put at the bottom just one of the more recent headlines. And of course, we were hearing about dementia earlier from Catherine Georges, and now we've connection with Alzheimer's and all other types of conditions. This is an extraordinary nexus, and they recognize that too. Mike was speaking before about the Jeff code analysis. Here's a little illustration of that, as well as the Avalier analysis, which is also on this slide. There is ample evidence to demonstrate that coverage of medically necessary oral and dental treatment is not a net coster, it's a net saver. Mike referenced the CBO meeting after Bill Scanlon's comments yesterday, and I had the opportunity to be in that room, and Mike was exactly right. Tom Bradley, the head of the health unit at CBO, and Lisa's here, she used to work at CBO, said, I think your numbers are biased low. He challenged us thinking that we were actually underrepresenting the savings that would come from medically necessary. And I hit somebody under the table, because I've never known, have you ever known Tom to say something like that? Never. I've never known him to say something like that. It's demonstrable of the power of the data that we've seen as it relates to medically necessary. And then finally, and this gets back to more of the topic of the session, we have an extraordinary consensus. I'd like to ask the folks in the room who are already signatories to the statement, do you mind raising your hand? Now look around the room. That's just tremendous. So that's a great demonstration, and yeah, truly. One of the things that lawmakers in particular really hate are soloists. They don't like to do a meeting with one group, and then on the same issue they meet with another group, and then the same issue they meet with a third group, and sometimes they get different statements from those different groups, and that means the job is a lot harder. And the thing that they are above all else is risk averse. They don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody, because most of us carry voter registration cards, and so they step back when an issue is fragmented. We're able to walk in and say there is tremendous consensus around the community for this. So what's next? I'm very optimistic. I've known Bill Scanlon since '95, by the way. So I chased him out in the hallway and I said, Bill, I love you, but I want to prove you wrong. He goes, I'd love for you to prove me wrong. And I think we can prove him wrong because we have the keys to coverage. We have key ingredients that will enable us to achieve the outcome that we're seeking here. So I mentioned the science, clearly the savings. I want to pause on the strength. One of the things we need to do next is to make our voice even stronger. I love, David, your definition of coalition, the Alliance for Combined Action. That's great. So I want to ask you all, assuming I brought it up here with me. Yeah, so big thanks to Victoria, because this idea only came to me at about 8 this morning. So she printed these off real fast. This is the statement we've been walking around with, and on the back of it is the list of organizations. So no one is allowed to leave the room until we reach 100, not just a joke, but we've got 86. We would love to reach 100. So if there is anybody in the room who would like to join this august group and is not yet a signatory to this statement, would you please find any of us and let us know? We'd love to do that. This is the statement. This is the group, and we're always adding. So if there's anybody who wishes to be added to this, that would be outstanding. It's constantly growing. The second thing that we're going to be doing is that last item there in the slide. We have met as a group. This coalition is just wonderful. We gather frequently by phone, in person. Families USA is always so gracious to enable us to meet in their offices. And in our last session, we got together, we decided that the key is, having now assembled all the key components for achieving coverage and having this extraordinary consensus in the statement, is now to surround these guys. Again, I'm going to go back to where I started. The key to this, the key to all successful advocacy, is making our priority their priority. Either making them want to do this because their heart, want to do this because their mind, or fear not doing it because of the politics. We don't care. So we're going to surround them. And this group agreed to, and we're going to be kicking off with the help of folks in this room and others, a number of key strategies to really ramp up this issue so it becomes one of the few around which they have to take action. One is media. We're going to be launching a big earned, social, and paid media campaign to really amplify, God bless you, really amplify this issue so again, they can't avoid it and becomes the kind of thing that they want to be associated with. Another one, and Congresswoman Shalala was the first of many during this conference to put her finger directly on it, is grassroots. Tip O'Neill famously said that all politics are local. That's because at the end of the day, everybody is answerable to the folks back home. It's the wonderful thing about our democracy. The difficult thing about grassroots is actually making it happen. How do you go ahead when you walk into a restaurant or walk into a grocery store or whatever, that's your grassroots. How do you get all those people activated to call, email, tweet, post, sign a petition? We're going to be launching that as well with some new tools. And we're going to be pushing to make this political. And by political, I don't mean in a negative sense, just in a common sense way. Listen, this administration, and we're focusing on administrative action, this administration does not have a strong record of success to show to older Americans when they ask for their vote next November, right? They don't. And we saw that in the midterm elections in 2016. Republicans have traditionally enjoyed an advantage among senior voters. It's been about 10 percentage points. Looking at Patrick to validate her correctly, but about 10 percentage points. In the midterm elections, it shrunk to 2. Essentially, they lost their advantage among older voters. Why? Because what message did they have for them? What did they say? We did this for you. So our conversations with the administration are pretty straightforward, which is to say, you need this. You need to be able to go to the villages or wherever, and you need to be able to say, yesterday you did not have this coverage, today or tomorrow you will. Again, we don't care what their motivation is to do what's right, we just want them to do what's right. Unfortunately, we've got good connections there within the administration, working very closely with them. We will soon be bringing directly to Adam Bowler, who is the head of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, with whom we've met, and who also importantly serves as the senior advisor to the Secretary for Health Innovation Transformation, the response to his question. We met with him a little while ago, and he asked, because he's a private sector guy, he said, how prevalent is medically necessary oral and dental coverage in the private sector? For him, that would be a positive. And so we worked as a group to develop that response. We're going to be reviewing a final version of it today, submitting it a week from today to CMMI. The answer is over 140 unique Medicare Advantage plans provide some form of coverage for medically necessary oral and dental treatment. To him, that's going to be very powerful and demonstrates that, again, he's going to have the validation for the private sector that he's seeking. We're then going to be going to Bob Chero, who's the general counsel for the Department of Health and Human Services. I've had an opportunity to work with Bob in other campaigns in the past when he was in private practice. And the point there, it was discussed earlier about the legal authority. The legal authority exists. They have to make that determination. It's not just ours. Center for Medicare Advocacy has done an extraordinary job documenting this. We're going to be bringing that to Bob so that he recognizes that they have the authority, they've used the authority. The only issue is they have not used the authority broadly enough. But they can. And then we're going to be taking the whole corpus of this, including, very importantly, the data from Avalier, the data from Jeffcoat, the data from others, and bring that to the Office of the Actuary, the Office of Management and Budget, and get them to do what we need them to do, which is to put their numbers to this. And their number will not be an increase in cost. It'll be a decrease. And at that point, then, the door swings open. So our goal is to make medically necessary oral and dental coverage not only a priority for us, but a priority for them. And in making it a priority for them, make it a reality for America's seniors. And we feel very confident by the time those seniors go to the polls next November, they will be going to the polls with Medicare coverage for their medically necessary oral and dental needs. So, thank you very much.